Hello, YouTube viewers. Today we dive into the fascinating and little-known story behind Hollywood's golden trio, Margaret Sullivan, Jimmy Stewart, and Henry Fonda. After Margaret Sullivan's passing, her daughter unveiled the truth about a notorious love triangle between her mother, Stewart, and Fonda, a tale far more surprising than anyone could have imagined. Although Jimmy Stewart would one day become a Hollywood legend, his early years painted a very different picture. As a child, he was reserved and shy, often spending hours by himself dreaming of a future in aviation. Young Jimmy filled his afternoons working on model airplanes in the basement, lost in his imagination. At this time, he was an unremarkable student with average grades, often caught daydreaming by his teachers. However, he had one hidden talent that would later become an enduring passion. One day, while helping at his father Ace's hardware store, a cash-strapped customer offered an accordion in exchange for his purchases. With the help of a local barber who taught him to play, Stewart discovered his unexpected gift for music, especially the accordion, which became a lifelong love. With varied interests and no clear direction, Jimmy's future seemed uncertain until family expectations took over. Despite his own dream of becoming a pilot, his father had already charted a different path for him, attending Princeton University to take over the family hardware business. Always the dutiful son, Stewart respected his father's wishes and enrolled in the Ivy League institution in 1928. After graduation, he received a substantial scholarship for graduate studies, but rather than continuing down this path, Stewart made a surprising decision. He followed his true passion and joined a theater company. This fateful choice led him to Henry Fonda and Margaret Sullivan, who would become his closest friends. However, for Stewart, this connection went beyond friendship. It marked the beginning of one of Hollywood's most iconic love triangles. While he formed a deep friendship with Henry Fonda, he also found himself increasingly drawn to the captivating Margaret Sullivan. Alongside his feelings for Sullivan, Stewart grappled with the shyness and insecurities that had plagued him since childhood. Feelings of inadequacy and a desire to prove himself seemed to cling to him, both on stage and in his personal life. His decision to pursue acting meant facing skepticism from his family and society, as many saw acting as an uncertain and risky career. These experiences forced Stewart to develop inner resilience, transforming his vulnerabilities into latent strength. In those challenging early years, as he worked to refine his craft and learned from close friends like Fonda and Sullivan, he built a solid foundation that would eventually establish him as one of Hollywood's most steadfast and respected actors. As his friendship with Sullivan deepened, Stewart found himself falling for her. Finally, he summoned the courage to ask her out, a proposal Sullivan later described as the longest, slowest, sheest, but most sincere one she'd ever received. Despite their closeness, the timing wasn't right, and their relationship never progressed beyond friendship. To Stewart, Sullivan became the one that slipped away. Soon after his attempt, Henry Fonda, the third member of their trio, stepped in and captured Sullivan's heart. The two married in 1931, though Sullivan's admiration for Stewart never wavered. She wholeheartedly believed he was destined for stardom. This bittersweet friendship would ultimately open doors for Stewart's career. By 1936, Stewart had signed with MGM, but his early roles were modest, especially in comparison to Sullivan's rising star at Universal Pictures. Aware of his potential and determined to help him succeed, Sullivan took on a mentoring role in his career. When she read the script for Next Time We Love, she immediately saw Stewart as the ideal actor to play opposite her. Universal, however, was hesitant. They saw him as a newcomer with little recognition. But Sullivan was persistent, advocating for Stewart until they agreed to give him a screen test, which he passed with ease, landing the role. On set, Stewart was young, relatively inexperienced, and daunted by the large-scale production. His nerves were evident, and even director Edward H. Griffith began to tease him for his clumsy mannerisms. Yet Sullivan remained steadfast in her confidence, supporting him not just as a co-star but as a dedicated mentor. She spent her evenings coaching him, working to bring out his natural talent while also helping him refine his on-screen presence. Under her guidance, Stewart learned to channel his nervous quirks and refine his delivery, skills that would later become some of his most endearing trademarks. Sullivan's encouragement was invaluable, instilling in him the self-assurance and discipline that would form the foundation of his future success. Thanks to Sullivan's mentorship, Stewart's progress astonished the director, and MGM's Bill Grady remarked that he returned to the studio as if he were an entirely new actor. Yet, 1936 held more disappointment for Stewart. Sullivan remarried, and once again it wasn't tea to him. His lingering feelings led him to move into a house remarkably close to hers, raising eyebrows among their circle. While nursing his unrequited affection for Sullivan, Stewart ventured into Hollywood's social scene. In 1935, thanks to an introduction from Fonda, Stewart began his brief but notable romance with the iconic dancer Ginger Rogers. Their chemistry was undeniable, evident both on-screen in Vivacious Lady, 1938, and off. Their passionate relationship was significant for Stewart, with Rogers marking one of his first serious romances, even reportedly becoming his first love. Though Stewart's brief romance with Rogers marked a pivotal milestone, his next film brought him back into Margaret Sullivan's orbit. The two reunited in 1938 for The Shopworn Angel, where their chemistry was undeniable yet again. The film's storyline involved a love triangle featuring Walter Pidgeon, who later remarked that Stewart's real-life affection for Sullivan was hard to miss. However, Stewart's feelings remained unreciprocated, firmly placing him in Sullivan's friend zone, prompting him to explore other relationships. During filming, Stewart also began a passionate affair with another Hollywood star, Norma Shearer, which lasted for 6 intense weeks. When his time with Shearer ended, he didn't remain single for long. Next came Loretta Young, one of Hollywood's quintessential good girls. Though Young fell deeply for Stewart, he wasn't ready to settle down, inevitably leading to heartbreak. As Stewart enjoyed the highs of bachelorhood, his next romance was both thrilling and controversial. While working on Destry Rides Again in 1939, he and Marlene Dietrich, a married woman, entered into a passionate affair. Their relationship abruptly ended, however, when Dietrich revealed she was pregnant. Stewart was reportedly adamant about her ending the pregnancy, a decision that left an irreversible rift between them. Though Dietrich followed his wishes, their relationship was irreparably damaged, and once filming wrapped, Stewart distanced himself completely. Dietrich, clearly hurt, later downplayed their relationship in her memoir, referring to it as a trivial affair, and mentioning Stewart as little as possible, marking Stewart as a heartbreaker in the Hollywood scene by 1940. In 1940, Stewart's career hit a new high. He reunited with Sullivan for 2 films, one of which was The Shop Around the Corner. However, the movie that defined his career that year was The Philadelphia Story, where he starred alongside Cary Grant and Katharine Hepburn. Critics praised his comedic talent, and the film became a huge success. Although Stewart appeared confident on screen, he struggled with significant anxiety throughout the production, particularly during a scene where his character had to recite poetry to Hepburn. Feeling overwhelmed, he sought reassurance from Noel Coward, who offered him encouragement. Overcoming his self-doubt, Stewart delivered a remarkable performance, earning him an Academy Award for Best Actor. Yet, Stewart had mixed feelings about the win, as he believed the Oscar was awarded partly as compensation for his prior nomination loss for Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, where he felt his role had been more deserving. As Stewart celebrated his Oscar win, events on the global stage loomed larger. World War II was about to engulf the world, and Stewart's patriotism ran deep. He became the first major Hollywood star to enlist, despite initially being deemed too underweight for service due to his slender build. After months of working to meet the Army's weight requirements, Stewart was finally accepted in February 1941 and prepared to serve his country. Unlike many Hollywood stars who took on symbolic wartime roles, Stewart was adamant about joining the action. Embracing his love for aviation, he trained as a pilot and insisted on frontline duty. Remarkably, he rose from the rank of private to colonel within 4 years, saw combat in Germany, and was awarded the prestigious Croix de Guerre. Amidst these turbulent times, he found a brief romantic escape with Dinah Shore at the Hollywood Canteen, a club for servicemen. They nearly married, even getting as far as a Las Vegas chapel, but Stewart pulled back at the last moment. However, compared to the harrowing experiences of war, a broken engagement was minor in his mind. Stewart rarely spoke about his combat experiences, but his biographers revealed glimpses of the toll it took on him. He lost his appetite, barely eating and struggling with sleepless nights as he flew 20 dangerous missions. The worst moment came when his squadron, on a mission he demissed, was nearly wiped out, with 130 men lost in a single attack. This tragedy devastated Stewart, and when he returned home, his family was shocked by his aged and gaunt appearance, noticing a newfound gravity in his demeanor. Disillusioned and emotionally drained, he even considered leaving acting entirely to take up his family's hardware business. But fate intervened in the form of director Frank Capra, who reignited Stewart's career with an offer to star in It as a Wonderful Life. When Capra cast him as George Bailey, a man struggling with despair yet guided by resilience, he saw in Stewart the perfect match for the role. Initially, Stewart was reluctant, especially upon learning that the character contemplates suicide, a plot element that troubled him given his recent experiences. However, with limited options, he agreed. Though It is a Wonderful Life is now beloved as a heartwarming Christmas classic, the filming was anything but easy for Stewart, who returned from war still tense and uncertain. He poured his raw emotions into some of the film's most intense scenes, but despite his efforts, the movie initially flopped, failing to even cover its production costs. Stewart couldn't have predicted that it would one day be hailed as one of the greatest films of all time, ultimately becoming his personal favorite. Despite Stewart's success, he faced more setbacks when working with Alfred Hitchcock on thrillers like Rear Window and Vertigo. Although Vertigo is now highly regarded, it was initially a commercial disappointment, and Hitchcock somewhat ruthlessly blamed Stewart's older appearance. When casting North by Northwest, Hitchcock opted for Cary Grant instead, who, despite being 4 years Stewart's senior, looked younger. Although his career endured ups and downs, Stewart's personal life was finally finding stability. Once Stewart reached his 40s, his days as America's famous bachelor were numbered. In 1947, he met the woman who would become his wife, Gloria Hattrick McLean, at a Christmas party he attended uninvited. The evening, however, was less than impressive as Stewart overindulged, making a poor first impression on Gloria. Fortunately, he got a second chance a year later when his friend Gary Cooper invited him to a dinner party where Gloria was also a guest. Stewart was able to charm his way back into her good graces, and by 1949 they were married, marking the end of his bachelor lifestyle. From then on, he was completely devoted to her. Known as a dedicated father, Stewart and Gloria raised 2 adopted sons, and in 1951 they welcomed twin daughters. Parenthood, however, brought its own share of heartache. Stewart's deep patriotism and his military service had instilled in him a sense of duty, and he encouraged his sons to serve in the military. Tragically, his oldest son, Ronald, died in Vietnam in 1969, a loss that devastated Stewart. Yet this was not his first encounter with profound grief. 9 years earlier, he had endured the loss of his longtime friend and former love, Margaret Sullivan. Although Stewart managed to maintain his career, Sullivan faced difficult times. As she grew older, she began losing her hearing and suffered from severe depression, ultimately leading to her death by accidental overdose in 1960. Gloria later revealed that Sullivan's death had left Stewart heartbroken. Despite this sorrow, Stewart's public image remained untarnished, known for his wholesome character and integrity. However, a revelation emerged years later when Sullivan's daughter, Brooke, published a memoir detailing a shocking secret. While Sullivan was married to Stewart's close friend Henry Fonda, she had briefly rekindled her affection for Stewart, leading to a year-long affair. Following Gloria's death in 1994, Stewart was said to feel adrift, and he passed away 3 years later from heart failure, surrounded by loved ones. President Bill Clinton remarked that the nation had lost a national treasure, a man remembered as a gifted actor, a true gentleman, and a patriot.